And yet we have a proliferation of churches. I mean, it would seem that the message, because we've gone round now, it's Christmas time, there's decorations everywhere, people are going to go to church. In fact, they went to church on Christmas Eve, they went to church on Christmas Day, and then we'll even still say continuing into the new year, people will go to church on the eve of the new year and go to church on New Year's Day as well. And we're very religious people.
Seriously religious.
How does this tie into our everyday lives?
Let us thank God for the proliferation of churches. I was discussing somewhere and I was telling someone that it's just like the Nigerian police. Nigerian police is not doing well, it's not doing well. Can you imagine Nigeria without the police? If you don't know the encouragement, the hope to live that the churches are providing for this teeming population of the Nigerian populace, there are people who are hanging on to nothing else other than it is well that they hear in the church. Can you imagine what will happen if you remove that hope? Listen, I don't want to start preaching gospel here. Listen, the Bible says that faith is the substance of the things we hope for. In other words, faith is dependent on hope. What if there's no hope? The churches are providing hope for the people. And the government in Nigeria should actually engage the church to do that more. Because actually, that's the only thing that's remaining.
Bishop, if I may come in here, but it looks sometimes as though the churches encourage those who are in leadership who are not performing, because they tend to hover around them, seemingly giving them credence by blessing and telling them, go, God be with you.
Well, God be with you is something you can tell anybody. Is God with the person? I mean, is it not God be with you? God knows the person. I know I'm coding what I'm saying, but the point I'm trying to make is that...
Maybe you should decode it.
The point I'm really trying to make is that let's calm down. Let's be realistic. Let's be practical. There's nobody that is God. We're all trusting God and walking by faith. But this faith we are walking by has structures that make faith to work. Faith that has no works is dead. I have been in the forefront of advancing that church should get engaged in politics. For the past 15 years, I have been on this. I started from UNCP. I joined the UNCP. As at that time, I remember Tunde Bakare was telling a friend of mine that Ossai has backslidden. I'm talking about 1995, 96. It was those of us who Abacha didn't like in UNCP that formed the first set of PDP membership. Very first set. And eventually PDP metamorphosed to what it is today. With big umbrella. Lots of problems inside the umbrella, no doubt.
Are you still with them?
Of course I am. By choice. I am the type of person who tells you, this is what I believe in. I'll give you my reasons. Even if you don't like what I'm doing, you will agree that I have reasons for what I'm doing. You see, not until people who walk by conviction. What do I mean conviction? A man who can look at his mother in the eye and say, Mom, I appreciate that you're mom, but as far as this issue is concerned, you're wrong. And say it with all intent. Those are the type of people that can rule this country.
Have you found yourself in any circumstance in the party where you've said that to anybody?
A whole lot of times.
How did it play out?
Naturally, the truth is not something people like. People don't like the truth. And that's why I'm where I am. Otherwise, my colleagues who started this whole thing have been two-time governors and ministers and are very wealthy. But we are still standing on what we believe in. What made me drop out? Simply because I was asked to move from PDP to AD in order to win an election and come back to PDP. I said, no. I'm a member of a church platform of about 3,000 churches worldwide. I'm trying to convince them that democracy has kicked off in Nigeria, that we can build a nation. And the church was still finding it difficult to accept that a clergyman should do politics as at that stage. And not only have I come out to say that it is possible, now you're asking me to jump gun, to shift, as it were, somebody in the Republican Party suddenly running for an election in what do you call it? Democratic Party. Can you imagine that? I said no. That's why Chimaloke Namani hates me with a passion. Because we won the election. And then we won the election and came back to PDP. I stood on principle that I don't do that. Simple. But this is also a country where principles are not celebrated. Yeah? Because what matters is what car did he come with, how is he dressed, how many houses does he have, what's his bank account and all that. But I'm saying that we need principled people like church people. If a man can start a church in a 3-bedroom flat, I keep saying that, and it becomes a worldwide phenomenon. If a man can take the Redeemed Christian Church of God from a relatively uneducated person and turn it into a worldwide phenomenon, those are the people with tested and proven tracks that should help us.
Isn't it always, almost always different when you move from being in the church to politics? Because the way the church functions and the principles are completely different from that of politics, isn't it?
It is not. I'm talking as somebody who's done politics. Human beings are human beings everywhere. Listen, a lot of people that come to you in the church are also, the people in this politics are not from outer space. It is the same people who's in the church. You think they are different? All the councillors, all the honorable members, all the senators, all the executive ministers, they are all church members. So it is the same. People say politics is corrupt. I say church is as well corrupt. With full sense of responsibility. Human beings are human beings everywhere.
But then, how do you then approach, members who belong to, a different political party? Do you think that also, because people would say if you're criticizing, say, for instance, a particular local government chairman, or they could begin to read that, oh, he's not a member of your political party. That's why. For some people, it's about maintaining neutrality so you can be approachable by both parties.
Look at where we are, maintaining the neutrality. Look at where we are as a country. I travel. They give you a platform to preach the gospel. You preach a fantastic message. They say, hey, we hear your message. It's wonderful. But how come your country is the way it is? What's your answer to that?
So you believe very strongly that the church shouldn't be lukewarm. For
Yes.
some people, they believe that, speaking truth to power is one way they show that, they're not being lukewarm. They're very concerned about what it is that is going on.
Let me give you an example. Switzerland was a country that was in a situation worse than Nigeria is today, until a man by the name John Calvin, a pastor, emerged in the scene. Geneva was the dirtiest city in Europe. And John Calvin began to teach the rights of man. You would have heard about Calvin Institute. It was John Calvin, actually, that began to train people, some Quakers, equivalents of our SUs here, that moved from England during King George VIII to Switzerland and sat under the teachings of John Calvin, came back to England and couldn't continue in England. Those were the foundation men people that found America. They left England on a ship called the Mayflower. American Constitution is based on the Mayflower Compact, an agreement made on that ship by these church people. Those are the people that went to the Newfoundland, and you have America that you see. It was John Calvin that introduced interest rates to encourage those who want to do businesses and not have money. And he fixed interest rate at 4%. Not like Nigeria, where interest rate is 22%. You cannot borrow money genuinely in Nigeria and genuinely make profit. John Calvin laid the foundation. The teachings of John Calvin were debated in the National Assembly and implemented. But what we have here is a mere advice. There is no force of the law that backs up messages from the churches that can produce results. Give a typical example again. If we say today that for any candidate to emerge in any political party, a pastor, a credible pastor, must endorse your paper.